So before beginning, let me tell you that it was the Mughal Empire that saw this transition from medieval India to modern India. The medieval period, as we know, was dominated by a phenomenon known as feudalism. Now, since this word feudalism is of European origin, so it has very specific features. And when we refer to India or Indian feudalism, then we must know this word. Samantwad. Samantwad, which means that there were a lot of tributary princes who attended the circle, the court of a higher king, Maharaj. And the court of a Maharaj was dominated by these smaller Rajas, smaller kings, princes, and other such officers who were also given the same position. So with this, let's get to know a few facts about the Mughal Empire. The word Mughal is a distortion of the term Mongol, and I'm sure you are aware of the most famous Mongol, that is Genghis Khan or Genghis Khan. And this is so because Mughals were descendants from Taimur Lane or Taimur Lane on the one side and the Khans or Mongols on the other, and that is how they get the name of Mughals. Now, the reason why I have mentioned the heading with which we begin as the decline of Mughal Empire, because when the modern period begins in India, then Mughal Empire is on its decline. All its stellar rulers, starting from Babur, who had a very sharp mind. He was a highly educated, literate person who wrote poetry, biography, was interested in geography, botany, taxonomy, and other such traits. So Babur, Humayun, Babur's son, Akbar, these people fall in the medieval period. And after Akbar, there comes Jahangir, Shah Jahan, and Aurangzeb. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 rulers. So a rule for 200 years, it was absolute. Their control over India, their expanse from Afghanistan up to the south of India was absolute. Their control was absolute. The rulers who come after Aurangzeb, starting from Bahadur Shah won, because what you would remember in your memories, Bahadur Shah Zafar, he was Bahadur Shah the second, not the first. This Bahadur Shah, his reign begins in 1707. And you can remember this year as marking a switch to a different kind of politics where now disintegration of the Mughal Empire begins and it is not able to remain united after this. Also, another factor, another feature to notice is that this long line of all these capable rulers is a very unique feature in Indian history, because no other dynasty has had successively 6 capable rulers. And the Mughal rule, I would like to remind you, extends up to 1847. So almost 150 years, 140 years, even after the decline, the beginning of decline, the Mughal Empire did remain, although towards its fag end, it was an empire only in name, because the kingdom of, or the empire, so to say, was only a farcical term attached to the Mughal Empire, and it did not remain in any substantial terms. The extent of Bahadur Shah Zafar's empire only extended to a small part of Delhi and not beyond that. So if we take or if we contrast it with the Mauryan dynasty or any other dynasty that you pick up in history, you will see that no dynasty survives or the names of its rulers never continues after a succession of 3 generations. You can find it universally in with all the dynasties, this feature. But the reason why the Mughals were able to continue this long line of stellar rulers, capable rulers, was this feature or the absence of this feature. So in order that you don't get confused, I must write absent. The reason, one of the reasons, absence of the practice of primogeniture. Prime. So this itself is made up of 2 words, prime, which means coming first or the one that is centrally important, and geniture, origin, beginning. So Genesis. So primogeniture is the practice in which the empire, the throne, it goes to the eldest born child. And in the Mughal Empire, in the Mughal hierarchy of systems, such a practice was absent. So because there was no defined rule, no fixed rule as to who would capture the throne, who would sit on the throne among all the brothers of a king, it so happened that anyone who ascended the throne had to go through a bitter struggle for the throne, starting from Humayun himself. Even Humayun had to go against his brothers in order to succeed to the throne. And so goes with Akbar, because Akbar too faced many rebellions from his own house during his rule. So with these basics, let us begin. Let us get to know some more details of the Mughal Empire. It is crucially important because at the advent of the 19th century, or by 19th century, let's say in the 18th to 19th century, you would be astonished to know that 25% of global GDP was contributed by India, or at that moment we can say the Mughal Empire. So you understand what must be its might. Now, starting with Babur, and here you can note down these little details. His full name, his original name was Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur, and he is known to be the founder of Mughal Empire. Now, when Babur came to India, he already had a plan. And unlike other plunderers, unlike other conquistadors, he never planned to just plunder India, just loot India. He already had it in mind that he wanted to establish his empire. He wanted to establish his kingdom in India. Unlike his predecessor, Temur Lane, who had come in the year 1296. So when he had come to India, India was facing a power vacuum, and he plundered Delhi, he plundered other cities, but never stayed here to rule. Whereas Babur, he thought of India already as his patrimony, and he thought that he has to establish an empire, he has to begin ruling it as his own kingdom. So with this in mind, Babur comes to India. And what we must also know that, so the first significant battle that Babur fights occurs in 1526. But along with this, what we really need to know is the military strategy, the weapons that were in use. That is what was a defining feature that led to Babur's victory, other than his very keen and sharp mind, his tactical strategies. So, if we look at the ancient times, and by ancient times, I mean the transition between Indus Valley civilization to the Aryan civilization. So at that time, what defined the success of Aryans let's see the military evolution of military technology over the ages. So what defines Aryan victory at that time is swift horses plus spoked wheel, which provided them with greater speed, greater agility, and that helped them conquer vast parts or spread to large parts of India. After this, we see the advent of elephants. So it was elephants that were like a walking fortress in the battlefield, and it was very difficult to penetrate this fortress, to kill or wound somebody sitting on top of an elephant. And also, why we should remember that elephants were a very important part of military technology, because the greatest military deal of ancient India is the one between Alexander's general Seleucus Nicator and Chandragupta Maurya. So Chandragupta Maurya gifts 500 elephants to Seleucus Nicator, and that was one of the biggest military deals of ancient India. After these elephants, we see that horsemen, now the age of chariots is gone, and horsemen, people from the steppes, the grasslands, horsemen with archery skills, they will lead to the victory of conquerors like Mahmud of Ghazni, Muhammad Ghori, and such other conquerors. Now, again, you will see that beyond this point, I will write it down here. So beyond this point, in the beginning of medieval India, we will see that gunpowder and siege techniques. Siege means when you encircle, when you gherao a fort, and that is a prolonged encirclement, and you force them to give up, to relinquish their any hope of winning or fighting, because you have blockaded the entire fortress, and there is no food supply, there is no ammunition supply. So ultimately, the enemy has to yield. Anyone who is situated within the fort will have to yield. So gunpowder and siege techniques, they also evolved because of gunpowder and cannons. So these features, these military developments are what led to victories during the medieval times. Babur, on top of all of these, why the reason he won was because of matchlocks. These are a type of gun you would have seen, in which first the gunpowder is filled, then a steel ball bearing kind of thing, a ball bearing made of steel, that is put, and then it is fired. So it was these kind of guns that Indian soldiers had never witnessed before. And the first battle that Babur fought on Indian soil, it was the siege of the fortress of this place known as Bajor in 1519. So at this battle, the soldiers were bemused to look at these guns, these magical things that were making a noise and firing shots. But they were not able to be surprised for long, because very soon they were shot down by Babur's men and they fell to their deaths, leading to his victory in this battle. Before that, he established his base in Kabul, and out of that base, he started raiding, he started attacking India. Where did he come from? So Babur hails from this place known as Uzbekistan. And in that too, you must know, to enhance your general knowledge, that this Fargana Valley is a place situated in Afghanistan, the place from where Babur hailed. He was attacked by other Uzbeks and he had to relinquish his position over there. So that is how he comes to India. Now, the historical first battle of Panipat that Babur will fight against Ibrahim Lodi. Against Ibrahim Lodi. Then Battle of Khanwa against Rana Sanga. This was an even more monumental battle between Rana Sanga and Babur. Then another fact is that his autobiography, his memoir, is known as Babarnama, and it is written in the Chagatai language, the Turki language, not Turkish, but colloquially referred to as the Turki language. He was attracted to theology, poetry, biology, geography, history, and many more such subjects. And that is what all these things are referred to in Babarnama. From Samarkand in Fargana Valley, you see, this is the town. Even today, Samarkand in Fargana Valley, Uzbekistan, the place from where Babur hailed. And he was a descendant of Temur, as I have already told you, who had attacked India in the year 1398. I'm sorry for this date, 1296. It is actually 1398. The children of Babur, Humayun, Kamran Mirza, Hindal Mirza, and Gulbadan Begum. Now, it was against these brothers, Kamran Mirza and Hindal Mirza, that Humayun had to face many rebellions. They acted treacherously during wars, and so he had to defend himself even against his brother. Why you should remember the name of Gulbadan Begum? Because it is this Gulbadan Begum, the auntie of Akbar, the sister of Humayun, who will end up writing Humayun Nama. So, Akbar commissioned the work of writing his father, that is Humayun's biography, to his auntie Gulbadan Begum. And Babur died in the year 1530 in Agra. And what is meant by this, reburied, that it was his last wish to be buried in Kabul. So he was exhumed and then again buried in Kabul. So he dies in the year 1530, and that is when Humayun will ascend the throne. Now let us see key details from Humayun's life. So his name, his original name, his full name is Nasir al-Din Muhammad. Humayun, Babur, Akbar, these are what are known as the regnal name. Regnal name. Now, if some of you are into watching some TV series, then you must know that, and if you have watched the series Crown, then you will know that even Elizabeth or other such names of British queens, British empresses, so they were their regnal names, not their original name. When a person ascends to the throne, becomes king, then he or she has to take up a regnal name, the name in which they will rule. And his rule is divided into two periods, 1530 to 1540, and then again from 1555 to 1556. Why so? Because in 1540, he had to go back to Persia because he was chased away. He was defeated by Sher Shah Suri. Sher Shah Suri. Sher Shah Suri established a very short rule in India, but he established many of the institutions, like the institution of money or rupiah that we use presently, the method of branding horses so that the horses were not stolen or not bungled with by exchanging them with inferior horses. So such practices were started by Sher Shah Suri, and many of them, his taxation policies, they too were inculcated in the Mughal bureaucracy, and it was this system that was perfected by Akbar, and that established a solid base for the Mughal Empire in India. Now, he lost his territories to Sher Shah, but regained it with Safavid help. Safavid dynasty is the dynasty ruling in Iran, as we know presently, or Persia, as it was known back then. Even today, you will see that the body of water that is adjacent to Iran is known as the Persian Gulf. Now, the battles he had to fight against Sher Shah Suri are the battles of Chausa and the battle of Kannauj. And in both these battles, there was a stalemate. There was no final decisive battle in which one party would come out as victorious. And so it was a matter of saving face for both the parties. But eventually, Sher Shah Suri, with some treachery, with some underhand moves, he was able to dispel Humayun from India. And it was during this refuge, it was during this kind of, we can call it refugee status, that Humayun sought refuge with some of the Rajputs, and it was in this environment that Akbar was born, and that shaped a lot of his life. And that is how you will see that Akbar was able to maintain, he was able to respect Rajputs, he was able to maintain cordial relations with them. He also married a Rajput princess who is wrongly ascribed, whose name is wrongly ascribed as Jodhabai, but he did marry into the Rajput clan. Now, Humayun, this is what I'm talking about, Akbar. As of now, we are paying attention to Humayun. So he's supposed to have met Sikh Guru Angad Dev on his retreat, who blessed him that he is going to reconquer his territory. And it was Rana Prasad Rao of Amarkot who sheltered Humayun, and this is where Akbar was born. Hamida Banu, Akbar's mother, who is given the epithet of Maryam Makani, or the one who dwells with Mother Mary. Now, Humayun was an opium user, and accidentally he fell from his library in Purana Killa, and that is how he prematurely died, and Akbar had to take charge of the throne when he was only 13 years old. So Akbar, born in 1542. That is the year of birth of Akbar. So even Humayun was a very well-educated person, and you see, he even died while trying to read a book. He was on the steps of his library, and he fell down from there and died because of his excessive use of opium. Now, Akbar the Great. So, let me tell you first of all why Akbar or Ashok, they are known as greats. So, two reasons. One will always be the cosmopolitan nature of their empire. Cosmopolitan meaning people from the entire cosmos of belief, faith, such different religions, such things as different religions. Everybody was part of Akbar's empire, and it is not just that they were part of his empire. All the religions had respectability. Akbar abolished the very hated jizya tax, which was a tax that people had to pay en route to their pilgrimage for people other than who belong to communities other than Islam. Now his name is Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar. Akbar, the title lovingly given to him by people, and also there was an astuteness, there was a cunningness to using this name, because Akbar wanted to position himself as somewhere equal to God. So, also what we need to understand that Islam prohibits such kind of nearness or closeness or taking the same powers as God has. But Akbar grew up in India. He had very well imbibed the principles of India, and he did understand what Ram Rajya means. So, he himself tried to emulate principles in terms that he himself would be the lawgiver, he himself would be that ideal king who would be emulated by the successors to come and the entire populace in general. So, one feature that makes Akbar great is that he was cosmopolitan. Just like Ashoka's empire, in Ashoka's edicts on his pillars and other rock architectures, you will find that Ashoka expressly gives this injunction that all religions are to be respected. Everyone, every human, bird, animal, all forms of life are to be respected, because he had become an arhat, he had become a follower of Buddhism. Now, because of this, you will see that there will be something. So this cosmopolitan already includes things like secularism and respect for life, rule of law, such kind of things. The second thing will be their keen political understanding. So you will see that Ashok himself, Samrat Ashok, he himself fought many battles, And it was only at the end of all these battles that the Battle of Kalinga happens. Before that, he fought many battles, he killed many people, and he was also, in Buddhist literature, some places he's referred to as Kalashok or Chand Ashok. I'm sorry, not Kalashok. Kalashok is someone different. Chand Ashok, one who is really brutal. Ashok is really brutal phase. So you will see that these rulers, these emperors, they understood the limits of empire. They knew when to stop and now consolidate the empire rather than blindly just going on adding to their territories. And while you are adding to the territories in the north, you have troubles, insurrections in the south, and you end up losing territories in the south. When you come to the south, you want to increase your territory, you are having insurrections in the north and you are losing territories in north, east, other places. So rather than conquering more territory, Akbar, Ashok, these people understood that consolidation is more important. And consolidation, not just in terms of military consolidation, but also spiritual consolidation. That people themselves should feel part of the empire. They feel valued, they feel respected, and therefore they are able to contribute to the empire in all forms of ways. So it is because of this sharp understanding as well as a very, very dynamic and liberal character. So Akbar went against many Maulvis in order to expound his own religion of Deen Ilahi. Deen Ilahi. Deen, his own religion, his own set of religious principles. So these are the reasons why we refer to Akbar as Akbar the Great. Otherwise, every emperor, every human being has certain acts that we judge harshly. But overall, in the overall analysis, Akbar is rightly called the Great because he did many such things as accepting all religions, abolishing taxes that were hated by the masses, and such kind of things. So he laid solid material as well as moral foundations of the empire. Now you already understand, because he tried to form a religion, he tried to give a religion that would include all the people, be them Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Zoroastrians. All of these religions were accepted in Akbar's moral and spiritual understanding, as well as material foundation. So what did Akbar do differently that he was able to lay what we call solid material foundations of the Mughal Empire? The foundation of any empire is its economy. And in order to collect taxes, and that too accurately, so that nobody is unjustly extorted for more money or more crops. So what he did, that he cancelled all the jagirs given to jagirdars, or what we call this Zat and Sawar system of the Mughal Mansabdari system. So first of all, what Akbar did was that he cancelled the jagirs of all mansabdars and started giving them cash payments. Now understand that different soils have different productivity, and so the tax that is to be collected from different regions ought to be different. So now the next step that he took was he ordered all the revenue officers to collect accurate representations of what taxes were being collected for a period of 10 years. And then based on an average of these 10 years, he fixed the rent for all times to come according to this data. So at that point of time, Akbar was so sharp-minded that he was able to base his decisions on data and not just random speculations. And this is what we call that he laid solid material foundations of the Mughal Empire. Mughal Empire was ultimately a land-based empire. It was not a navy, and all its revenue was mainly based on agricultural revenue or land tax. So he also married the daughter of Raja of Amber. He conquered Gujarat in the year 1574, and it was in order to commemorate his victory, to eternalize it in stone, that he built Buland Darwaza, or in English what we would call a victory arch, and it is the highest gateway in the world. Now Mughal bureaucracy, as we have already mentioned, it is called Mansabdari system. This Mansabdari system had a two-way ranking of every officer. So one was Sat and the other was Sawar. Sawar, as it is easy to comprehend, was the number of horsemen, that any Mansabdar had to maintain, and Zat was his rank in the official hierarchy. Based on these, a Mansabdar's payments were fixed. Now, and also because they were the co-parceners of his empire, because it was the Mansabdars who were the military leaders. So he always saw to it, Akbar always saw to it, that the highest ranking Mansabdars were appointed by him personally, and it was not a random system where favoritism could occur because some minister was in charge of assigning these Jagirs. Also, very smartly, Akbar would never let any officer, any Mansabdar stay in one region, one Rayat for a very long time. He would keep shuffling them, keep transferring them, like it happens today in India, that officers are never made permanent. They are shifted, they are transferred continuously, and that is what very astutely Akbar followed as well. So see, they were co-sharers of his realm, co-parceners, and serving as subcontractors. They were the military contractors. It was these Mansabdars who would hire the horsemen, who would hire the foot soldiers, and it was under their command, their charge, that these people came. So it was always made sure by Akbar that he had cordial personal relations with these Mansabdars. Now, let us come to Jahangir, Akbar's son. Jahangir's name is Nuruddin Muhammad Salim, and his regnal name is Jahangir. 1605 to 1627 is the period of his reign. And very famously, he was named after the Sufi saint Sheikh Salim Chishti. Sheikh Salim Chishti, because it was at the shrine of Sheikh Salim Chishti that Akbar asked for a wish that he be granted male successors, and it was then after this kind of pilgrimage that Akbar had a child. He actually had twins, but his younger brother died in infancy, and therefore Jahangir was the only surviving male heir. So therefore he was lovingly called Salim. Now, the foster mother was the foster mother of whom? The foster mother of Jahangir was the daughter of the Sheikh, Sheikh Salim Chishti. This is another important fact. You can keep it in your mind. Now, Jahangir, he also, you can say, he laid the foundation for the advent of British rule, because it was Jahangir who was visited by the British ambassador Thomas Roe as well as Captain William Hawkins. Whereas Thomas Roe, he was unable to get any concessions, he was unable to secure any permissions. It was Captain William Hawkins with whom Jahangir shared the love for wine. Captain William Hawkins also showed Jahangir how to manufacture beer. This is a fact. And that is how they made good friends, and ultimately he was able to secure permissions to open factories in Surat. Initially, the Mughals were apprehensive of granting them any kind of permissions to open factories because the Indian waters, Arabian Sea, this was all dominated by the Portuguese, and there was bitter rivalry between the Portuguese and the English. Now, his memoir is known as Tughlaq Jahangiri, and it is written in Persian, as opposed from the biographies of Babur and Humayun, which are written in the Chagatai language. The memoirs of Jahangir, they are written in the Persian language. And we should also know about Akbar's memoir, or what we call Akbar Nama. So Akbar Nama was written by Abul Fazl. But there is another document that is known as Aine Akbari. Now this Aine Akbari, these are the lifetimes, the autobiography of Akbar, whereas Aine Akbari gives you a picture, a glimpse into the way Mughal Empire functioned, what all procedures were followed, how was the courtly, what were the courtly manners, and such other things, how the bureaucracy functioned, have been mentioned in this book known as Aine Akbari, which is different from Akbar Nama. Then Jahangir was a connoisseur of art. He introduced portraiture, picture making. Now, picture making or painting, there are injunctions in Islam against making pictures, but Mughals especially made sure that they did commission pictures. This showed that other than Allah, even they had the power to infuse these pictures with some kind of liveliness, some kind of life. But Islam says that the only one who is allowed to give life is Allah, and therefore no other being should be able to replicate these pictures. Also, he did commission the scientific study of birds, flowers, and animals. How? Because it is only when you would have seen in old texts, or when people began the study of flowers, different species, the first thing to do was you need draw an accurate picture of that flower, that animal, so that its dissection, not its dissection, so that its anatomy could be understood. The famous painters, now since we are talking about his love for portraiture, for painting, the famous painters he employed must be known. They are Mansur, Murad, Abul Hasan, and Madhav. Then Jahangir is infamous for executing the Sikh Guru Arjan Dev, as Arjan Dev was suspected of helping his rebel son. Whose son? Jahangir's rebel son, Khusro Mirza. Khusro Mirza. And finally, the great Mughal Shah Jahan, because of whom one of the wonders of the world, Taj Mahal, we see. His full name, Mirza Shahabuddin Muhammad Khurram. And different from his father, Jahangir, he was a patron of architecture rather than portraiture or paintings. And to his cap, we add the feathers of building the Red Fort, Taj Mahal, Shahjahani Mosque, and Shahjahani Mosque or the Jamia Masjid of Thatta in Rajasthan. Now, he was at one point defeated by Guru Hargobind at the Battle of Amritsar and the Battle of Kartarpur. So, Battle of Amritsar and Battle of Kartarpur were the two battles where Shah Jahan was defeated by Guru Hargobind. And he appointed his son Dara Shikoh as his successor. But unfortunately, Dara Shikoh could never become the emperor. He could never become the ruler because Dara Shikoh was murdered by his brother Aurangzeb. And what a brutal man Aurangzeb was. He served his brother's head on a platter to his father, Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan was presented with the severed head of his son, Dara Shikoh, by Aurangzeb, a very brutal ruler, because of whom a saying that kingship knows no kinship is made famous. Now, this Dara Shikoh, he was a very educated person, also interested in Sanskrit and translations. And because of Dara Shikoh's efforts, Indian philosophy could reach the West. He translated Upanishads, which is known as, in this book, Majma'ul Bahrain. And another book that he wrote is known as Sirre Akbar. Upanishads, I guess, were this book, Sirre Akbar, and Majma'ul Bahrain is the coming together of two oceans of thought. One is the Islamic philosophy and the other is the Indian philosophy. So, he combined them, he saw their common points and wrote this book known as Majma'ul Bahrain. And then, as Aurangzeb, we have seen, he was extremely brutal. So he will also end up imprisoning Shah Jahan in Agra Fort till his death, till the death of Shah Jahan in the year 1666. Then about Aurangzeb, his true name Muhyiddin Muhammad, regnal name Alamgir, and Aurangzeb not his regnal name but otherwise. Mughal Empire reached its greatest extent in terms of territory. In terms of territory, Aurangzeb will be the one who will expand it to its maximum. But because of this headless expansion, what will happen is that there will be instability in the empire. When he will be fighting the Marathas in the south, there will be rebellions in the north. When he'll go back, so his life was entirely spent in camps, and till the fag end of his life, right up to his 90s, he kept fighting wars. He probably died at the age of 87 or 88, but even till that age, he kept fighting wars. And it was because of Aurangzeb's policies that Mughal treasury got emptied in fighting these wars. He also went on distributing mansabdari positions when the coinage, the currency was not growing at that rate. All the trade had been captured by the British, and there was no taxation possible of other commercial ventures, and therefore the treasury will go on getting emptied because new mansabdars will not stop being appointed. New mansabdars will keep getting added to the Mughal bureaucracy, adding to the burden of salaries and other such expenses. And it was Aurangzeb who was succeeded by Bahadur Shah I, and the downfall of Mughal Empire begins from Bahadur Shah I. What you should know that he is the one known as Bahadur Shah I is known as Shah-e-Bekhabar. His empire is going to tatters. It is being lost. It is being disintegrated, and he had no idea of what all is going on in his territory. And it was already Bahadur Shah, when he succeeded the throne, he was already a 65-year-old man, but he indeed was capable. If he had ruled for some more time, then he might have saved Mughal Empire from complete loss, but that was not the case. And this is how the decline of Mughal Empire begins. With that, I will stop for today, and we will continue this class with modern India in the next session. Thank you very much. Have a great day.